is being brought to you on the World Talk Radio Network. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit worldtalkradio.com. The World Talk Radio Network, where the world comes to talk. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the World Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
It's time to hear from those who have faced adversity and accomplished greatness. Welcome to Breaking the Limits with host Leica Sean. Your past does not dictate your future. This program will inspire and motivate you. Now here's your host, Leica Sean.
Hello and welcome to Breaking the Limits. Tonight I have an awesome guest, Carol Blackbird Edson, the art director of Blackbird Studios and Zodiac Poetry Mask Theater, which is located in Seattle, Washington. And the topic of discussion tonight is the healing power of dreams. Welcome to the show. And by the way, for those that don't know, she is also my mother, so if I say Mom while I'm talking to her, that would be why. Welcome to the show, Mom, and please tell us about how did you first become interested in the healing power of art and dreams?
Well, hello from Seattle. Love your show, by the way. Well, that's a good question because it started everything. It all began with a serious illness and a snowflake.
A snowflake?
A snowflake, yes. The star. Well, at the time, I was living in northern Maine in a small town, and an epidemic of flu came through, and I suffered a serious fever. And when I came out of it, I lost a lot of my functions and had some serious problems with all kinds of coordination issues and memory.
You got brain damage from the high fever?
Yes, that is what it was. It took a while to diagnose because at first it just seemed like I was behaving weirdly, but finally they did put me through the machines and such and found out there was an epileptic seizure disorder that caused a lot of difficulty with coordination and remembering things and such.
That must have been hard to deal with.
Well, yeah. How do you feel when you wake up in the morning and you can hardly remember your past, and then you can't open the door, and then you can't remember any words, and then you try to write and the letters are mixed up, and you try to
living in an alternate reality.
Yeah,
I mean, I was going through
so.
A lot of it with you, so I know a lot of this, but I'll ask you some questions as if I don't, so that people in the audience might be curious to find out some of those things as well. For instance, I didn't know you could get epilepsy from a brain fever.
Yes, it's common with children too, but apparently the flu, when it gets up in your brain, can cause this.
Wow.
Well, that's what my illness felt like, pretty other planet-like. And the doctors that I went to didn't have really any advice except to veg out on drugs for the rest of my life.
Yay.
I was not taking no for an answer. So how to get back speech and memory, how to get back clever hands, I wondered. It was necessary to rest and sleep a lot, too, and because I tired really easily. And I couldn't speak normally, of course, but something wonderful happened.
Well, you gave me some questions to ask on my request, and one of the things you had, the illness and magic dancers in my dreams.
Yes.
Folks want to explain what that means?
Yes, that was the first thing that surprised and delighted me. You'd think I'd be having nightmares, of course, but no. As I would wake up and go to sleep, I would get flashes of the most beautiful pictures. And while I was half asleep, I would see magic dancers, happy magic dancers in my dreams. And so I'd go back to sleep, and then maybe I'd see a beautiful magic talking animal or a mysterious kind of fairy face or angel face.
Now, you talk about totem animals a lot. Do you think that had to do with that, too?
I didn't know about that at the time.
Oh, okay.
But, well, Maine is a very different place. It's pretty,
yes,
it's pretty
where I grew up.
simple and primitive. So we didn't have fancy words for anything, but indeed, the magic animals were powerful creatures. And I needed to invent a way to come back into my arts, because I'd been an artist and a poet before. So I thought, how am I going to get my parts together here? How am I going to get coordinated? So I decided I would try paper cutting like you do when you're a kid. You get the scissors and the colored paper, and nobody...
Paper dolls.
Yeah, paper dolls. Nobody cares what...
Snowflakes.
Yes, well, the snowflakes, now that was something else. Well, practicing the paper cutting and cutting out silhouettes helped me with the coordination, but one day I was up and about, and I was looking out my window, and there was an event that changed my life, really, because I looked out the window and I saw a little snowflake dancing down and landing on the roof next door on the snow, but it didn't fall flat. It stood up, and it was very close to my face. It stood up, and then it twirled around, and it stood up again, and I suddenly had the feeling it was almost talking to me, and the patterns on the snowflake are so beautiful and elaborate. And I began to feel I was being told to work with images, and in particular. So I actually have a poem about that, which I'd like to read.
Oh, please do.
The snowflake who came to dance. Looking out the winter window, a flutter and a flurry down, and on the snowbank alights one big brilliant snowflake. White and shining like a tiny star, it stands up, perching on its sparkling star points, right outside my window. Suddenly, over it flips and stands back up again, as if a miniature acrobat is trying to attract my attention. Delicate patterns glint as it sways, this mysterious face of winter. Then slowly it turns and twirls away, as if to say, follow me in the magic dance. You see, like me, follow the magic dance.
So did you just write this one, or was this written way back?
Yes, I wrote it as I was working on the paper for the show, because I suddenly realized that snowflake is a character all the way through my life up until now, because right after that I sat down and did my first snowflake cut.
Okay, well, a lot of your
paper.
A lot of your art has kind of snowflake-esque edges to it, even when it's done with animals and human faces in it too.
Yes, well, that was a surprise, because when I started cutting snowflakes and I'd open them, there are all these empty spaces where you've cut out, and I'd start to see the little faces and animals in the empty spaces.
So that's how you started doing the editing?
Yes, that's how I started being able to bring the material from the dreams out into the present where other people could see it.
Now, I never really knew that there was an actual form of paper art apart from regular origami, which I know is very fold paper. You want to talk a little bit about that? Is this also actually an art form that exists?
Yes. I didn't know it at the time either. It was a surprise to me. So as I went along, I began to study the history of paper cutting around the globe, and turned out many cultures have had a very wonderful set of celebrations involving paper cuts. With knives and scissors and paper, all sorts of people all around the world make paper cuts and put them up on their walls for good fortune and luck and protection of the home and for prosperity, especially New Year's in China or in Japan. And this is thousands of years old. And then in other countries, too, in the modern times, you see it in the Mexican flags with the little cuts in them that are hung up at the fiestas. And then in Europe, in Poland and Switzerland, and the country peoples do scenes. They do elaborate country scenes with little goats and flowers and everything. And, of course, we know the Japanese kirigami is quite famous. And, of course, in Bali, they make shadow puppets cut out of leather and put a lantern behind them to make plays. So it's all over the world, and oftentimes it has this extra energy about it of being a traditional celebration and try
now,
to...
Does it actually have a name?
Well,
besides,
each country has
the origami,
its own.
is there actually a name for it? I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, each country has its own. Like in Japan, it's kirigami, and in Mexico, it's called otami. And this is another. If you're a gardener, you would be interested. They cut out little paper dolls that have different kinds of vegetables decorating them in paper cut form, and they plant it underneath a plant, the seed or the seedling, in order to bring the spirit of the plant up strong. They're asking all the cucumber gods to come and make the cucumber grow. So when I discovered that, I was just charmed, and I started making cutouts for my potted plants.
The cucumber gods for your potted cucumber.
So very excited to discover that I had fellow artists around the world who were doing this.
Yeah, and I know that my nephew, your grandson, has gotten quite a skill set at it going, too.
Oh, my
He's doing
gosh.
work, too, now.
He's decorated the entire house with kirigami,
he's
the most wonderful, elaborate kirigami. And it's these tiny little fingers, and he can make the most amazing cuts that I can't even make.
He sent me some for Christmas, so that was fun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Now we have a lot to cover, so I was wondering if you had this broken up originally into the 4 segments of the show, but I thought we could move forward a little bit since we have a little more time with this segment. The next thing you want to talk about was the Dream Art Goes Public, which is you began to share your healing paper cuts and dream poems with others. How did that first happen? When did you decide you wanted to share this with somebody else and realized it was something that was a gift that you could share with other people?
Right. Well, as I was doing some writing as well to try to get my skills back with words and with handwriting, both those, I came across a poetry magazine called Color Wheel Magazine, which was up in New Hampshire. And so I sent a sample of paper cuts and poems there. And wonder of wonders, I struck up a wonderful friendship with the editor, Fred Moe. And he just was really excited about my paper cuts, and he decided to ask me to be a contributing editor. So I would help him design the book and have some poems in, and then there were wonderful poets from all over America in there as well. It was a nature and philosophy-based magazine. And actually that collaboration lasted for 6 years. Even when I came to Seattle, we were continuing it. So that was very exciting. And in terms of self-esteem, being recognized, again, as a poet and as a healing artist, now a healing artist, because art, as you can see, is just central.
Did you know by that time that it was actually a recognized art form, or were you still exploring
No,
that?
I don't think I did, because mine were still pretty, I think they were half-folded at that time. They weren't 5-folds or anything like that. But they had, again, dancing people. We had dancing people as our logo, and that was my first logo design.
Oh, okay.
It was very exciting to start designing logos because paper cuts can easily be transferred to a black and white print. Make a great print.
Yeah.
So this was sort of the beginning of Blackbird Studios, although I didn't have the name Blackbird yet because a poet in Seattle gave me that later.
And that I want to ask you in a minute, but I want to hold that thought because we're coming up on a break. So when we get back, we'll touch on that.
Wonderful.
Listen. The world is talking. The World Talk Radio Variety Channel.
Your past does not dictate your future. Learn where this powerful message came from by picking up a copy of the inspirational book, Firewalker, written by author, speaker, and talk show host Leica Shawn. Firewalker chronicles Leica's experiences raised in the deep woods of Maine by a Czech immigrant who claimed to be touched by the hand of God, and her journey to overcoming the fear and self-doubt that was thrust upon her for years. Pick up your copy of Firewalker now at breakingthelimits.com/Firewalker. That's breakingthelimits.com/Firewalker. Champions are born and losers are made. This is a powerful statement made by one of the world's top motivational speakers, John D. Lemmy. Clinically diagnosed as a stutterer at a young age, he was told he would never speak fluently, and yet now he is a world-renowned motivational speaker. Get the resources now you need in order to stay on top of your game. John D. Lemmy is giving away for free 7 success motivational teachings. Go to www.selfempowermentsystems.com. That's www.selfempowermentsystems.com.
Wake up with a unique daily show covering the world of sports with a new perspective. Get Off the Bench with Mitchell John will bring you the current sports news and events happening now, not later like the others. Your first look at sports will feature the news and views from professional, college, and high school sports. Tune in with Mitchell John for a can't-miss program every weekday. Catch Get Off the Bench with Mitchell John weekday mornings at 6 a.m. Pacific Time, 9 a.m. Eastern Time on the World Talk Radio Variety Channel. Are you wondering how to jumpstart your life while bringing more excitement and joy into every moment? Join the Goddess Gals, the mother-daughter dynamic duo, Cynthia Bryan and Heather Brittany, each week on radio's favorite power hour, Star Style. Be the star you are. You'll hear from the experts and authors that inspire and motivate you to be your greatest unique self. Plus, in Tea for Two, a mother-daughter brew, Cynthia and Heather tackle the topics and tips that make a difference. Listen every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on World Talk Radio, Studio A. You're listening to the World Talk Radio Variety Channel.
You are listening to Breaking the Limits. Your past does not dictate your future with Leica Shawn. What would you do if you could overcome any obstacle in your life? Let's get back to today's exciting discussion. Here's Leica Shawn.
Hey, welcome back to the show, and our guest tonight is Carol Blackbird Edson, the art director of Blackbird Studios and Zodiac Poetry Mass Theater in Seattle, Washington. And Carol, welcome back. You were just telling us how you actually ended up with the name of Blackbird.
Right. Well, it's my stage name, so to speak, or my art name. Mm-hmm. And when I left Maine, which is rather a quiet place, and came out to Seattle, I started to spend a lot of time performing with poets, and one of my poet friends, Alexis, gave me this wonderful name, Blackbird, because I think she just felt I was a fluttery, trippy kind of person. And it stuck, and it's really worked well for me. I'm happy with it. It makes me feel...
It does fit you.
People come up, and when I am introduced, they come up and sing me the Beatles song, Blackbird Singing in the Dead of Night. And it's just such a fun thing to happen.
That's funny. Now, you do so many things. You have quite a creative bent. You are not only the art director of Blackbird Studios and Zodiac Poetry Mask, and you've been talking about how you originally got into the healing power of dreams and paper cuts, but you're also an author, and you've worked on children's books. And one of the questions you had here for me to ask was, did you publish your children's story on Imagination? Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, well, let's roll back a minute to how the heck did I start writing stories when I was in such bad shape? Well, actually, it was a therapy plan. Since I was having difficulty even getting words to come up when I needed them, I decided, well, why don't I work out by making a children's book which has a smaller vocabulary, but still, I was quite able to make story. That wasn't affected. I loved story, of course. So I started working on the book, and it took off, and all these wonderful characters appeared, characters of just something that come to me, and funny, humorous, and the usual witches and, dragons and things. And it just went on and on. And luckily, at a library nearby, a famous teacher of children's literature was giving a talk. She was retired, but knew all kinds of people.
No coincidences, huh?
Yeah. Well, coincidences, there you have it. It was right up the street from me where I was in my little Garrett in Maine. So I went up to see her, listened to her talk, and I said, I have finished a book. I have a manuscript. Would you like to read it? And she said, yes. So I gave it to her. I don't know what she thought. It was, who's this hayseed? What's she doing up here? But she read it, and she got very excited. And she said, I have a friend in New York, a former student who's now becoming quite advanced in the publishing industry, and I want to send her this. And so she did. She sent it to a lovely editor at Orchard Books, and she also liked it. And she said, would you like to work with me on speculation, which in publisher talk means you and I will work on the book a little bit to get it rounded out, and then we'll take it to the board and see what happens. So she represents my book. So for a year, we rewrote the book, and it was so fun because she gave me great cues like, I want to know more about this cat character. Could you, give me a few more, maybe a chapter more about the cat? And it was so exciting because she'd stimulate my imagination further. So I worked a year with her, and that brought more skills up. And finally, I sent it back, and she said, well, I think you've really done it. I really like this. I think this is highly publishable material, but I do have to take it before the board of other people who represent other books.
Board. So what happens with the board?
In publishing all the time. So she did, and some of the other books won out, and there's only a certain number you can publish in a year. So she said, I'm so sorry, we can't publish this one now, but if you keep at it, you're going to publish one day. Well, that was very, very heightening to self-esteem, I will tell you.
It's extremely difficult to get any kind of foot in the door at all in the publishing industry. I mean, my stint with getting my book published, just having the amazing amount of rejection you go through.
Totally.
Even trying to get your foot in the door. So that in itself, just even getting a nod from them is quite an accomplishment.
Well, this was luck. It was bloody magic luck.
Well, I would say luck and talent mixed. If you didn't have a good manuscript.
Because she's a real good editor. I mean, this was a serious book publishing effort.
So what's going on with that manuscript now?
Well, since I went through a great upheaval, it kind of got tucked under the bed. Well, heaven knows everything else happened. However, the book came back, and now it's gone full circle around to where when I reread it, I realized it's really a trilogy.
So now it's even more than just one book.
Oh, more, and even maybe more than that. It's a whole world I need to explore. And
so are you revisiting it now at this point?
Yes, now, after all the other things I've done, and I think that will make it much richer.
Well, I know that since then, since you put it on pause, you also went into mask making and videography, and there's just a huge story there. So, because your next question is where do the masks come in?
Yeah.
So I guess we could touch on that. Kind of try and keep people in line with all the stuff you've done. And kind of dizzying to go around and try and look all of it at once.
Yes. Well, that's a great spot because masks, like snowflakes, expanded into a power of healing because masks are often used for healing all around the world, which I didn't quite understand, but my friend Elizabeth Ostrander in Maine had an inkling, and she's a grand mask maker. And I was spending time with her and with Robin Brooks, another teacher who worked in paper collage, and I got more and more excited about doing something special, and Elizabeth and I decided we'd do a performance in masks. So she made two fabulous sort of African dog masks. And we performed on stage in a little town called Eastport. Mm-hmm. And we did a mime. And there were giant dog bones, and we were magical dogs, and we had a big fight. And we had a fight over the dog bones, and then we made peace. But no one spoke. It was all to music. And that was
didn't bark either.
Yeah, it was my first step on stage. So exciting. Because the masks change how you feel. When you're in a mask, you're not the same person.
Well, you can certainly hide behind a mask, that's for sure.
Well, it transforms your energy. You can go all different directions than you go with your regular face. You become an actor. So that started a lot of excitement, and my mask making continued of course, Roseanne, who is my other daughter, your sister, turned out to be very skilled in mask making, and later on you'll hear about
a whole other level of artists with pottery and mask making and painting, and she does about everything.
Yes, and Zodiac Poetry Mask comes up a little later in the talk here somewhere, or sooner or later, when I get to Seattle. I'm not quite to Seattle yet.
Well, that's the next question on the list, is what made you decide to move out west from Maine to Seattle, where you originally grew up?
Well, I was born here in Seattle, yes, and then we spent, I've traveled all around the United States, but so
you have a notation, The Dream of the Golden Scissors, so I
yes,
don't lose that in the fray.
That was another one of these magical images that called me. I had come out to Seattle to visit because both of you girls had come out to college and work. Now you were older. And on the airplane, I looked out the window, and it was night, and there were stars. You know how that looks. And I saw in the stars a shimmering image of golden scissors. And I thought, okay, I'm being told something here, right? Scissors, that's my paper cutting. Golden, that's the future. So yes, I'm moving to Seattle. And of course, then I had family here. And a whole new life opened up, very exciting life with the energy of the early 90s in Seattle, which was just splendid and exciting and full of not only the rush of the city, which kind of shocked me at first.
Well, it must have been very different from having been out of the city for so long. It has grown immensely since you were last out there.
Yes, and it was 0 to 60 coming from Maine to Seattle, too, in 1 second. Yeah. So, then I arrive after The Dream of the Golden Scissors, and my friends are going to poetry readings, so I go with them. And, of course, I've got my little bag of poetry and writing with me and my art with me. And so I do my first performance at a lovely cafe here in Seattle with a famous Red Sky Poetry group, it's been here forever and was very welcoming.
Well, Seattle has also got quite a hot spot for the arts, doesn't it?
Well, yes, and especially at that time, there was a great poetry scene that kind of also sort of spread into theater. So people performed a bit, and I got into moving from what I'd done with Elizabeth there in the Stardust Dogs, moving into using masks with my poetry on stage. And that was very well received. People loved the masks, which had some paper cuts on them, too. And at the same time, there were so many people in the poetry scene. Some of them were making books, especially the haiku people. And this is really the beginning of Blackbird Studios, because I was asked to help make books with both my poetry and, in particular, using paper cuts as illustrations. And so a lot of publication began then. Logos were designed by me, book designs, especially the haiku series. So Blackbird Studio really expanded there, and I met so many wonderful people and art groups in particular in Seattle.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's definitely a bit of a shock to go from Maine to Seattle after having been in Maine so long. I know, because I did the same thing.
Yes.
Myself, as you know.
Well, I feel like I was riding some, one of the magical animals from my dreams or something that wanted to go and step out of being completely unable to speak or write or do anything and step right up on stage, and that was amazing, stepping on stage. And meeting also lots of musicians, and one of them was a harpist who did healing music, so more healing enters the picture, healing with art and healing with music. She was Marnie Jones, the harpist, and so she and I decided to make an album of my poetry and her music. And I think I wrote a song on there too, and we put that out, and it was well received, and we were invited to perform on stage and tour a bit. And another friend who was making a TV show at the public access station she asked us to come perform on her poetry TV show. And that's how I discovered TV.
Oh, so let me see this straight. You've got what a long list of things you've done here. You've
and see how they all jump one step.
Yeah, getting sick to then discovering paper art to masks to writing to stage to TV.
Yes. It's wonderful. The next big jump was TV because when Marnie and I were on in the studio doing the television show, Best Talent, we were on, up on stage there, and little did I realize that I was being watched by someone helpful, and I got excited about making television because it looked like so much fun. So you can learn to make it there at the public access station, which is quite wonderful.
Well, let's hold that thought. We'll be right back after the break.
All right, we'll get into the TV shows.
The World Talk Radio Variety Channel, where the world comes to talk.
Your past does not dictate your future. Learn where this powerful message came from by picking up a copy of the inspirational book, Firewalker, written by author, speaker, and talk show host Leica Sean. Firewalker chronicles Leica's experiences raised in the deep woods of Maine by a Czech immigrant who claimed to be touched by the hand of God, and her journey to overcoming the fear and self-doubt that was thrust upon her for years. Pick up your copy of Firewalker now at breakingthelimits.com/Firewalker. That's breakingthelimits.com/Firewalker. Champions are born and losers are made. This is a powerful statement made by one of the world's top motivational speakers, John D. Lemmy. Clinically diagnosed as a stutterer at a young age, he was told he would never speak fluently, and yet now he is a world-renowned motivational speaker. Get the resources now you need in order to stay on top of your game. John D. Lemmy is giving away for free 7 success motivational teachings. Go to www.selfempowermentsystems.com. That's www.selfempowermentsystems.com.
It's time for metaphysics to come out of the closet. Join host Kathy Kimura each week for Speaking Metaphysically. This program is designed to open the door to the world of the metaphysical. You'll hear from Kathy and her guests, including psychics, healers, shamans, and philosophers. You'll also hear from channels, angels, and more. Each week is sure to be informative and enlightening. Speaking Metaphysically with Kathy Kimura, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the World Talk Radio Variety Channel.
The World Talk Radio Variety Channel.
You are listening to Breaking the Limits. Your past does not dictate your future with Leica Sean. What would you do if you could overcome any obstacle in your life? Let's get back to today's exciting discussion. Here's Leica Sean.
Welcome back to the show with Carol Blackbird Edson. And we were just talking about Zodiac Poetry Mask, which is your venture into TV, correct?
Yes, and various other escapades which happened after the TV got started as well. Zodiac Poetry Mask was the theater, was my first title for my first television show, and I had been looking around for someone to help direct, because somebody's got to be in the booth calling the shots, right? Well, because if you're the talent on stage. So we started thinking about working with puppets. Someone came up with the great idea of having a puppet named Blackbird herself that looks like me.
Yeah.
So this little puppet that looks like me that I think actually...
No, that was Roseanne, wasn't it? She created that, my sister.
Uh-huh. And who should I find? I call, but someone says, oh, there's this poet who's also a director. His name's Peter. So he was filming your show with Marnie Jones. So when I called, he said, oh, yes, I saw you with Marnie, and I would love to be a co-worker with you. So we collaborated. We became art partners, and he helped me with the Zodiac Poetry Mask, and I helped him with a documentary series on artists that he was doing. And we would create these little puppet intros with these darling puppets that we'd construct with. They would have little scenes, and we'd take them out in the woods and have them perform and such. And then we'd have dancers and singers and musicians on the show. And they were all mostly for Earth Day shows. I was getting interested in environment, as were many other poets on the scene there.
Going green, huh?
Yes, very well. That's what's happening now. That's what we need to know about. And, of course, we did a performance trying to save a river in which you and Roseanne were in mask in the park, Ravenna, saving the river at Ravenna Park. And it did get saved, too. They did finally get the money to unearth it. And we read poetry, and people wore, I think you guys were nymphs, forest nymphs. And we had all sorts of other poets there. Big project, and Color Wheel. You may recall Color Wheel magazine from earlier in the story produced a whole book on that, a whole magazine on that, and with other poets as well. So every Earth Day and every summer and winter on the solstice, we would make a puppet show with all sorts of musicians and dancers and just splendid, exciting new work people were doing in Seattle. That adventure, it started to spread to performing with environmental groups, because I came across Nature Consortium, which is a lovely lady, Nancy, who sponsors big festivals, bringing children outdoors and having them do art outdoors, and then having artists come perform for them. And they also do education where the kids go help in the woods, cleaning up the woods. And while they're cleaning up the woods, dancers and things come dancing by.
So it's like a whole interactive experience.
Yes, and it's very successful and full of lovely artists. And it's come to fire dancers and people hanging from trees in ropes and just fabulous things. So every year, Zodiac Poetry Mask, with all the people I've swept into it, oftentimes my daughter and my grandson join the party as well.
Yes, I've seen many pictures.
Yes, indeed. And we make life-size dragons, and which the little kids at the events think are real. By the way, I've heard a little girl talking to one of those dragons for 10 minutes once.
How old was this little girl?
Yes, it's part of the magic of
images. Was she like 5, or how old was she?
Oh, about 4.
Really?
She asked where you lived. Where do you live, Dragon? She'd be going, It was great.
That's funny.
Well, that's the magic of it, of imagery, dream imagery like that. So, we had the purple portal that you would go in with this booth all done in purple with dragons in it. And then the kids had a place where they'd make art. They'd draw dragons.
I saw the picture that you did of the dragon playing chess.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Yes.
I'm not out there. I live in Georgia, which is why I see a lot of your stuff.
Right.
Print for those that are listening, and I'm not always so involved in it because I'm long distance.
Right. Well, Roseanne and I built these dragons. They're big as people, and they're sitting around a table. And Roseanne made a crystal dragon, a crystal set for the dragons to play chess, and it was one of the installations at the Arts and Nature show. And then, so that goes on. That goes on every summer in August. It's a lovely thing if anybody's out here that wants to see it. Late in August, Arts and Nature. It's on the web too. So that somehow got the notice of the people at another environmental and educational institution called Islandwood, which is this marvelous educational facility out on the islands set into the forest, so it practically looks like it grew in there. The way that it's put together is so natural. And they ask us to come entertain. And by then, for quite some time, I've been working with another poet and flutist, Maras Kunzens. And so he very much enjoys masks too. So we all put on our bird masks and fox masks and whatever, and danced about the trails, playing the flute, and with my character, Beaky.
Who is Beaky?
Who is Beaky? Okay. Beaky is a mask of a bird, or myself, actually, in a bird mask of a goldfinch, a magical goldfinch. Of course, she had streamers and twinkles on her. And she plays a flute, but hidden in my pocket is one of those little recorders that has all the possible bird songs in it. So as I'm dancing along the trail and the children see me, I turn on the bird songs.
Oh, wow.
And I can change from one bird to another. And how I got named Beaky is a great story. So we were out entertaining the kids who were working on cleaning up the woods, right? Mm-hmm. And at the end, 3 little kids come up to me and they go, "You're not really a bird, are you?" This is how it is with children. They just, masks, they believe it. And then one of the older ones who was, he knew things already.
Wiser.
She's not a bird. She's a person. There's a person under that mask. So I start laughing so hard. I lift up my mask and I do admit that I'm a real person. And one of the little girls says, "I name her Beaky."
That's how it got.
Yeah, that's how she got the name.
Great.
And of course, it has a huge beak. So
that's great.
And so ever since, Beaky's at all the festivals.
I know. I just thought you made that name up for the mask. I didn't know a little girl named Beaky.
No, that was what's so sweet about it. So, and of course, it was totally Beaky. So Beaky is out there with me and the dragons.
After that.
Yes, when we do the performances. So that's all about environment and nature and helping kids to see more important aspects of what nature's about. There's a lot of informational and educational aspects that are kind of snuck in there, so the kids get that. And so at this point, I'm doing a little more healing studies. Ever since I met Marnie, I realized how much art and healing go together, and storytelling too. And so working with different healers. Here in Seattle, there's a big healing community.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds
Alternative medicine is very big out there.
Yes, very big here, and many wonderful teachers. And I've had great luck having marvelous teachers of all sorts here, and learning a Japanese technique called Reiki, which is an
energy
enhancement. Good for your health, good for your work.
That uses chakras, right?
It uses all the body systems. You channel in basically chi, like in the martial arts. You pull in chi, but it's really kind of accelerated and comes through your hands. There's technique to do that. And it's marvelous. It's used for healing others and for healing oneself, and even to bless projects. It just clears the air. So I got excited about that and learning more about different healing modalities. And
now, are you actually a certified Reiki?
Yes, I'm a Reiki
master. At this point, I know you were taking the certification. I didn't hear that.
Yes, yes, it's been many years now. I'm a Reiki master in a whole bunch of different.
Don't they have different levels, though? Weren't you like a different?
There are 3 levels of Reiki, and the master level is where you can teach. And then there are different aspects that you can learn to add into Reiki. There's Reiki from different parts of the country with different types of energy. There's an Egyptian Reiki, which I studied with an Egyptian.
So do you actually practice at this point?
Yes, I do on myself and on others. In fact, I just did some today. Very, very health-giving. I highly recommend that. And while I was studying, I met so many different people who were interested in also dreams, and I was over visiting one of the local alternative bookstores, and I saw someone that looked very interesting. He had sort of this shining silver hair and kind of an amazing feel about him, and he was giving a talk. So I went to the talk, and it turned out to be a man who totally specializes in dreams.
You just keep meeting up with people.
Yes. Oh, it's one of those.
But I would like to get back to that same topic as soon as we get back from the break.
Okay. All right. Tell you all about it.
The World Talk Radio Variety Channel, where the world comes to listen and talk.
Your past does not dictate your future. Learn where this powerful message came from by picking up a copy of the inspirational book, Firewalker, written by author, speaker, and talk show host Leica Sean. Firewalker chronicles Leica's experiences raised in the deep woods of Maine by a Czech immigrant who claimed to be touched by the hand of God, and her journey to overcoming the fear and self-doubt that was thrust upon her for years. Pick up your copy of Firewalker now at breakingthelimits.com/Firewalker. That's breakingthelimits.com/Firewalker. Champions are born and losers are made. This is a powerful statement made by one of the world's top motivational speakers, John D. Lemmy. Clinically diagnosed as a stutterer at a young age, he was told he would never speak fluently, and yet now he is a world-renowned motivational speaker. Get the resources now you need in order to stay on top of your game. John D. Lemmy is giving away for free 7 success motivational teachings. Go to www.selfempowermentsystems.com. That's www.selfempowermentsystems.com.
Ready to revolutionize your thinking? It's time to learn about the clarity, simplicity, and speed of systems thinking and how it can be applied to every aspect of your daily life. Each week, tune in to Steve Haynes Live and learn one systems thinking concept. You'll also learn 3 simple, clear, and integrated applications that you can use instantly. You can apply them to your life, job, family, organization, government, and or society. Steve Haynes Live broadcasts every Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Eastern on World Talk Radio Variety Channel. Join Steve, and together we will make a global difference. Listen. The world is talking. The World Talk Radio Variety Channel.
You are listening to Breaking the Limits. Your past does not dictate your future with Leica Sean. What would you do if you could overcome any obstacle in your life? Let's get back to today's exciting discussion. Here's Leica Sean.
Welcome back to the show. And Carol, I know there's a few different things you really wanted to cover, and we're on the last segment, so I want to make sure I mention them all. One of them is the Butoh character, the wise woman at the end of the world, and there's also the magical fishwife, which is an indie film character, which is a movie directed by Carl Krogstad, which you were part of. Would you like to go ahead and tell us about all of this?
Yeah, again, characters, right, up here. Yes, a friend of mine just decided I was certainly the person for this role. So the Butoh is a type of dance from Japan, which is surrealist, and everyone is painted with clay. They're painted white with clay, and then they wear kind of just fringes of clothing. But since I was the elder, I had a robe. But and the group, Degenerate Art Ensemble, which is a lovely woman and her husband in the band, they were creating this really elaborate production, most elaborate one I've been in, where there were huge props and there were towers with sand falling off them and people leaving off things and peekaboo booths where you could see strange things going on. It's very dreamlike, very surreal. So they asked me to be the wise woman at the end of the world. So I got all painted up white and had a costume. You never talk in Butoh. It's totally silent. It's all like mime. And I had 2 books where you choose which book, and then you find out where you're going to go at the end of the world. Whichever book you choose leads you somewhere. And it was very elaborate.
Do you have pictures of that? I don't think I've seen the pictures of that.
No, I don't think I have sent those out. I had the luck that Haruko, who is the woman who's the main performer in that group, coached me in Butoh. And in Butoh, you try to go into a dream state to do the acting. You're like half in a dream state when you act, and you try to make your emotions fluid, and you can go between sadness and happiness, and then back to sadness, and then over here somewhere, all kind of like in 1 minute. It's very strange work, very exciting, and very dreamlike, shall I say? And of course, we had dancers and whatnot. So that was an exciting step out into a larger world, because Butoh is an international art form, mainly from Japan, but it's big here in Seattle now. Then I wanted to tell about the movie. Artist friend came over to my studio, and she adored my studio because it was full of puppets. Mm-hmm. And so she said, "You know what? I think you're the magical fishwife." So I'm like, "What? I'm the magical fishwife?" But she said, "Yes, Carl's looking for another character for the movie I'm in, you see." And she continued, "I am the albatross." So she had a complete albatross mask and wings. Oh. And then he was looking for this other character. So she just grabbed her cell phone and called up the director, Carl. This is an indie film. He's quite well known, though. And I talked to him. He said, "Oh, yes, you're the one." So here we are in Seattle at night in a yard full of sculptures, and I'm wearing a little kind of French cook's outfit with a little apron, and my friend has made an enormous fish, about 4 feet long, for me, all full of glittery material. It's a prop. And her name is Grace Dagger, and she makes the props, and she's also the albatross. So they shine strange,
very magical.
It's just great. It's like a dream. They shine strange lights on us and wiggled plastic, so it looked like we were underwater. And I was to juggle the fish. So I juggled the fish. And then she comes marching by and looking world-weary, and it's just so surreal. And then later on they showed this at the Seattle Art Museum along with some of Carl's other pieces.
That's awesome. We do have 4 minutes left. I want to let you know so you can talk about whatever you want to talk.
Let me continue about the silver-haired master of dreams. Okay. This turned out to be Robert Moss, who he is a former history professor, but he was born in Australia, and he has been brought up in the regions where the Aboriginal dream time is still a living traditional way of connecting with greater realities. And so I got fascinated with his understanding of dreams, and he teaches about dreams and how he has developed techniques to use the material in your dreams to bring it out, discover what it's meant to tell you, because he feels there's messages, helping messages, healing messages, just plain instructions, who to avoid and who to go for.
And he's an author because you sent me his book.
Yes, that's right. I sent you 3 Only Things, which cover a territory of coincidence, imagination, and dreams, things that we say are only, but really there's a lot of treasure there that you need to look into.
Dream interpretation is a tricky business.
Well, it is, but he teaches you the most wonderful techniques, and he empowers you too. He doesn't try to take it away and tell you this and that and this and that. He teaches you. In fact, I've taken his teaching course onto several levels so that I can also consult on dreams and help people learn how to interpret them. It's great fun. And lots of healing.
Since we have 3 minutes left, I was wondering, I always like to ask my guests, is there something that you would like to leave as a parting commentary for the listeners tonight to sort of sum up your...
Yes, I do. I do have a thought. Oh, let me attach to the end of that. If you're interested in learning more about dreams, check mossdreams.com, and you'll see the book there.
MOSS Dreams?
Yeah.
Okay.
.com. And you'll see, his great page, all kinds of info. Okay, so what do I want to tell you? Well, I want to tell everyone that if you listen to your dreams and also connect to any arts or playfulness about life that comes to you, explore where any images lead from your dreams. Write them down in a journal. Know that you're surrounded by mysterious blessings despite the circumstances, which can sometimes nowadays be pretty tough, but you have a treasury of helpers in your dreams. As I discovered over my lifetime, as you can see, they led somewhere. They led
like
me.
that treasury of helpers in your dreams.
Yes. And starting with Mr. Snowflake and going through Talking Animals, and now I'm back to my book, the trilogy. I'm working on the trilogy full of more magical characters that come from dreams, a lot of them.
And they're probably coming to life even more, and they're going to have even more characters coming out of that.
Oh, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Well, I really wanted to thank you for being on the call, and amazing history you have with all the arts and all. And again, I can have you back because we had so much to cover in so little time, really.
Oh yes,
so,
I'd love to
again,
do more
where
about
can
dreams
people
would be excellent.
Where can people see your work?
Right. Well, I think if you go to, is that Breaking?
Oh, you want my site? Well, you can go to breakingthelimits.com and take a look at episode 7, and that'll go. There's a link actually to your gallery on there. So breakingthelimits.com. Go to the episodes and click on number 7, and which is this episode. So again, thank you so much.
Oh, it's been
very
wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks again for tuning in to Breaking the Limits. Please join Leica Sean for another program of inspiration next Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 Eastern on the World Talk Radio Variety Channel. This week, never let what's happened in the past dictate what happens in your future.